It is time to begin. Thank you all for joining today. Just as a matter of logistics on a couple of topics. The first, we are recording this session. For those that have to leave early or unable to get here on time, that's okay. We will be providing the recording of this session for posterity, so it will be sent around and available in many different channels thanks to our wonderful department in the marketing area. So thank you all for that. Today, everyone, we're going to be talking about Beyond OCR. I am very, very pleased that we have a very big milestone that we've just achieved here at Linedata. We have welcomed some new friends to the family. Today, I'm joined by three folks, and these fine fellows are going to tell us about what's going on, who is this nRoad company, why did they join up Linedata, where are we in the world of using AI in financial workflows, how did we get to where we're at today, and where are we going next? And where does this take us? And we're even going to have a little bit of a show and tell towards the end of the session. So very excited. I'm going to ask each of our fine folks here in the panel today to introduce themselves, as they can always talk about themselves, in my experience, quite well. We're going to start with Aashish. Aashish, who are you? And welcome. You're muted, though.
Gary, thank you. I'm Aashish Mehta. I'm founder CEO of nRoad. My entire career has been at the cross-section of finance and technology. I'm all about automation first kind of a guy. This is what I profess my entire career. I'm fortunate to have built successful startups in my past life as well, and happy to actually join forces with Linedata as part of an nRoad. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, and welcome.
Thank you, Aashish. Ron, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Gary. My name is Ron Meyer. I'm the Senior Business Advisor here at Linedata. Prior to joining Linedata, I had a 27-year banking career, primarily on the operations side of the business. Came to Linedata when I installed the product of Linedata's in my bank. My bank was subsequently bought by another Linedata client, and Linedata offered me a job. I've been here now 15 years and continue to help the bank, or continue to help Linedata actually refine the products, kind of monitor the market space, and give competitive insights as well. So, Gary, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thank you, Ron. And CVG.
Hey, Gary. Hello, everyone. So my name is Claude-Vincent Gillard, nickname CVG. Prior to joining nRoad, I worked for more than 25 years in the financial information industry. I managed product, but also data operations for about 400 people for a company called Bureau van Dijk that has been acquired by Moody's in 2017. So I spent a lot of time managing data, managing teams that aggregate and standardize data coming from various sources to make them ready for publication. And since then, since 2021, I'm helping nRoad as advisors in various capacity. Back to you, Gary.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So, folks, we're about to get started with our first part of our discussion, but just as a matter of technology here, the Q&A portion of the meeting is live for all attendees. If you have questions, we may have some amount of time at the end of our discussion today, towards the end of this hour, where we can address some of the questions. We will, of course, follow up if we're unable to get to all of them, but please feel free to use the Q&A at any time, and we will look to address questions towards the end of the presentation today. So without further ado, we're going to start our discussion today with, for many people, one of the more interesting topics, which is nRoad has joined the Linedata family. So Aashish, I would love to spend a few minutes with you. And the first thing on the docket for many people who are unaware of nRoad, who are you guys? What do you do?
Great, thank you. So nRoad is a pure play unstructured content processing company. This is, and that is for financial services alone at this particular stage. So that's what we did. That's what we continue to do. That's what the whole premise of the company was. And that's how we actually, that's where we are focused on. Now, a lot of big words, right? But simply put, what we are really good at, what nRoad is really good at, and what we've been able to create is ability for us to read financial documents, statements, anything that has tables and narratives and text and all kinds of stuff that comes with it. We are able to process that, and we are able to create structured variables that can be utilized in the downstream processes. Our guardrails are very tight. This is what we do. We don't do anything before. We don't do anything after. We let the analysis, paralysis, all kinds of decision making, we leave it to the experts. But this the problem of a manual problem, which is converting the unstructured, semi-structured content into structured variables, is what nRoad actually automates. Now, what we've been able to do with this technology is to affect many business processes within financial services. One of course is underwriting, risk management, which we will talk about it. But apart from that, there are processes like KYC, which are document heavy processes. On the asset management side, there are processes that require, obviously from the financial analysis perspective to middle office, back office, there's a lot of documentary evidence that comes into the workflow, and that's where the workflows become not anymore automated. And that's what nRoad is actually all about.
Excellent. So yes, you did use a lot of big words, things like pure play and the word company. I've never heard these words before, but let's get back to, so how did you end up coming up with this scheme, right? So you mentioned that you're an automation guy, right? Do we want to rewind the clock? I know you're only, what, 24, 25 years old. But yeah, do we want to rewind the clock? How did you get to the idea of nRoad, and how did it come to be? That history, I think, is relevant in context.
Gary, first of all, I wish I was 24, 25. This would have been a golden year or something. But, the idea of nRoad didn't start actually one day when I woke up and said, this is what I'm going to do during pandemic. No. The idea of nRoad actually started back when I was part of a company called eCredit, when we created eCredit was specialized in decision support software that allows trade credit professionals to analyze trade credit risk. Our customers were Fortune 500 companies. They loved our platform. There was one consistent complaint. Your platform is great. Problem is getting the data into the platform. Very painful, especially when we have to read documents and we have to type that information in. So that was the problem statement. That was actually, I didn't come up with that problem statement. That was actually given to me by my clients, our clients. Now, I took a first shot at solving this particular problem back in 2007, when we created a company called Corporate Fundamentals, where we were industry first in terms of automating 10Ks and the Qs from Edgar Fallings. And we were very disruptive back then. Obviously, a lot of things happened since then. I went back to the thesis back in 2020, realized this problem hasn't been solved. There are lots of tools, techniques have come in, but this is not a technology problem. This is a techno-functional problem. So I looked at it very differently, and this is how we created nRoad.
Wow, interesting. So why Linedata? Right? I mean, you're in a hot space. It's AI everywhere all the time. Even my AI robots are telling me that it's all about AI. Everything's AI, AI, AI. Even my animals and pets are talking about AI. So Linedata. What do you think? What's the match here?
Okay, so I think we started working with Linedata as a partner about a year back. It became very clear. And again, part of the strategy from nRoad standalone was to actually find partners who could actually take us, embed us into their software applications, and so we can get access to a bigger marketplace. Now, remember I told you, pure play, I said focused. Those are the two words I used. And that's good. That's good when you're building a venture, a bootstrap venture. You're not actually raising any external capital. That is a good thing. But what that does, the flip side is you remain really focused. You remain really you remain actually utility. As I said, we're not doing anything before, we're not doing anything after. Most of our clients are looking for end-to-end solution. They are looking for a loan origination software. They're not looking for a just the utility that what we do. So the part, our journey in terms of our growth was to actually embed into something that is that provides end-to-end solution, and that. Obviously, as I said, we started working with Linedata. We really love the culture, the people. You, Gary, I think you've been fantastic. And, we actually decided it's time for us to actually join forces.
Wonderful. Well, we certainly are excited that you guys have joined the team. And from Linedata's perspective, right, as you know, Linedata, we exclusively focus in two main areas of the software industry. Right, one is for firms that deploy capital as credit-based deployments. That's our lending and leasing business, of which we have two core platforms. And then, of course, we have the investment side of the house, where we provide software to firms that do capital deployment as investment structures. So, and shockingly, at this point, and I think the year says 2025, hard to read a number that big, we still have this issue of so many documents, so many things. Was just, having my own personal moment with one of my financial institution providers, yet again asking to send them another version of a PDF that was hard printed, manually filled, scanned, and returned. And I cannot believe we're doing this. And they hope to process it, direct quote from an email just an hour ago, in 4 to 7 working days. Right. For very basic information. So I would like to take that opportunity as a transitional moment here. And let's start expanding our discussion here to the rest of our panelists. But from Linedata's perspective, just to put a neat bow around this marriage here with nRoad, right? We have a number of customers and a number of processes all throughout our software empire. And of course, on our services business as well. But today we're going to talk software primarily. Right, who continue to have this large expense of things that, as a pure fintech guy, which I've been my entire career, I struggle to understand how in the world we haven't really solved this problem. Right, and so I'm going to take a step off into the history books for just a moment here, and I would love to get perspective, and I'll start CVG with you. How did we get to where we're at today? Here we stand today, right? We started, I remember years ago at the early days of my career, there was this thing called OCR that was supposed to make things better. And yet we're now in 2025 and what? Like how, give us some context, CVG.
Well, I think that, as Ashish said, in the good old days, 20, 25 years ago, people would start typing the data straight from documents. And obviously technology evolved over time. There's been several attempts for me to solve that problem. And obviously at the time, as I'm telling you, I was working for BVD to, produce that data and sell it to customers. And obviously we have issues, first data quality issues, make sure that the data is there's no missing data, that error is as low as possible. Obviously updating was an issue. Obviously most of the data at the time was manually input. Then, feeds appear from various vendors. There's been several attempts like HBRL to try to standardize that, but for me, as that didn't apply internationally, and it's far from being able to be used globally. Technology also evolved, went from this first platform to more advanced platform that I used at the time called the robotic process automation platform, which are very popular, but for me had the issue that they were not able to deal with the challenge of variations in documents. If documents were standard, that would apply very well. If documents were not that structured, these solutions would fall short. And so basically, I came across Aashish at the time when nRoad was launched, because what we wanted to do is to basically automate the input of bank financials. And bank financials are very complex animals. I mean, a lot of data are found in the notes. You have regulatory data. Banks tend to hide information like the total capital adequacy ratios when they're not good, or the level of non-performing loans. So what you need to have is first technology that allows you to understand your spreading guidelines, where asset, what is liquid assets, what is equity. I mean, there are clients that would interpret the data in a certain way. So first you need to have technology that understand your view on the data, how you want to standardize the data. That's one thing. Then a technology that is able to understand and find the information wherever it is. In tables, okay, the main tables, the main statements, in the footnotes, okay, in tables, in footnotes, but also in text. And as I said, impaired loans, non-performing loans can be just in a management text somewhere, really hidden, or in a footnote. And also a solution which is really designed to produce data at scale. I had more than 80 people working on these bank financials, and what you needed is to have a tool then can produce the data at scale. I think that what these solutions and what we reach with AI now, we're at the stage where input is completely eliminated. Mm-hmm. What people will focus is making sure that the data is accurate. Now, AI will give you also a level of certainty. It will tell you, I'm confident that data is 100% accurate. I understand it, and I understand where you want to put it. Okay, so that means that we reached 95% accuracy rate, and for bank financial statements where we had a chart of accounts for more than 1,000 lines, it was a huge improvement for us. Huge, and especially the turnaround time. We had savings of more than 60%, because the analyst doesn't look for a number and see where it goes on your spreadsheet. No, the machine does it for you. And all what the people have to do is to basically validate the data based on your own controls. Mm-hmm. So huge improvement for us, huge improvement. And I believe, Aashish, I mean, we're probably at the stage where, as technology evolves, the QA part of it, the data validation, will go lower and lower. And I'm sure that for very simple financial statements, the machine is able to do almost automatically. Right? So not onboarding these technologies now, for me, it's a mistake, because we're on the learning curve where it improves month after month.
Thank you, CVG. That great context, and I appreciate that. Now, our industry, financial services generally, and financial technology specifically, I'm going to beat ourselves up here a little bit. We're prone to hype cycles and fads.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? It's a factual statement, right? In fact, we have entire investment theses built upon finding hype cycle companies, investing in them, flipping them, selling them, etc. That's the way the world works. It's not a critical remark. It's a hilariously factual statement. That being said, right, as we have evolved from where we used to be to where we stand today, I've heard from many people that the hype around AI-enabled process improvement, and in this case, particularly unstructured data extraction, etc., that this time the hype may be realer or more true than before, meaning that we may actually be in a true evolutionary step versus a marketing department infused hype cycle where the data lake is better than the data warehouse, and that was better than the database, and in the end, it's still always the same thing, right? Oh, but now it's in the cloud and it's secure. Well, it used to be on another server and it was also secure. So we have a lot of history in this industry of overselling, over-promising, and under-delivering, right? So Aashish, I know you've been around the block a couple of times, but what's your reaction to that? Are we actually taking a real step as an industry right now? Is this real?
Yes. The answer to the specific use case, I think now, by the way, your question and your framing is absolutely right on, right? That has been, again, I don't want to repeat any of that, what you said. I completely agree with you. AI has done a future. It's all about the use case selection. If you don't have the right use case, you are actually chasing something that you may not even see a single dollar ROI. Um, the use cases have to be in terms of number of clicks. I think AI today, where it actually is and can deliver significant ROI, if you can eliminate those clicks reliably. And as EVG said, identify that use case, right? Variability. Again, OCR did not work because there is a ton of variability. In this particular use case we're talking about, or the financial documents in general, they are absolutely chaotic when it comes to variability. We're talking, so I think the from my perspective, I think the use of AI is real as long as you have the right use case, right use case that you're going after. Second, I think the unit cost analysis has to be very, very critically looked at. You must be aware of the compute that goes into it. The reason, by the way, why there is such an excitement about AI, one, people don't talk about it, but it's really the compute cost is continue to come down. And because of that, it's become now tenable to solving some of the problems that are solving some of the problems using automation versus just throwing people at it. From day one, I think the unit cost was at least on our mind. We made sure that whatever we create, the stack that we create, can easily compete with human cost and the fully loaded cost. So, but answer the question, yes, this is real. And speaking purely about nRoad, we have been in production since 2020 with large financial, like the Fortune 500 companies, and we have delivered the real ROI to them. And so I can tell you with experience, yes, it was a struggle, but we have delivered a real ROI.
Well, thank you for that. Now, whenever I get into operational integrity and process questions, I always turn to Ron. Ron spent a lot of years at a bank running operations, and if there's anybody in my personal universe who knows how integrity of processes needs and must be maintained at a financial institution, it's Ron. So Ron, give us your insights into, is this really different now? And how on earth does a bank actually put these things into production, or an financial firm, without blowing up the operational integrity that's kept them in business? Is it real, and can it happen? How do they do it?
Yeah, and the short answer to that question, Gary, is yes, it's real and it can happen. And I need to go back in order to answer this question. I want to talk a little bit about what Aashish said earlier today about throwing manpower at a process. Okay. The typical financial services model when I started in the industry was, if you want to scale your business, you get more staff. Okay. That was simply the way that things were done in 1985 all the way through 1990. In 1990, we came out with this new term in the financial services industry that called more with less. Somebody said, you need to do more with less. And now all of a sudden, it became, for operational managers like me, it became somewhat of a big struggle, right? I was trying to figure out, how do I get the same processes done? How do I ensure the accuracy of those processes? How do I support the additional volumes of a growing financial institution without being able to add staff? And at that point, you've got to step back operationally, and you've got to take a look at a process. And a process is nothing more than a bunch of steps in stages, okay? And when you look at a process, and it's any process, and like Aashish said, it's not for every process, but when you look at a process and you say, this process takes me on average 5 minutes for one of my employees to complete, okay? That's not in itself a very large statement that we want to make, okay? Yeah, it's 5 minutes, somebody does it. Now, that one person does that 20 times a day. So now you've got 5 minutes times 20 times a day. So now what you've got is a sizable opportunity to look at, where can I take and infuse things like AI into that process to shave a couple minutes off of that process. And one of the things that I always did as an operations executive was I took a look at my employees' processes and I said, look, they do this process, it takes 5 minutes. I, through technology, can take 1 minute off of that process. A lot of people will tell you in the C-suite, they'll look at that and they'll say, big deal, you saved yourself 1 minute, okay? But you saved yourself 1 minute for one individual who did that 20 times a day, and there are 5 other individuals who do the exact same job. Now you've got a considerable improvement operationally, and that is something that's worth taking a look at. And it's worth looking at technology that we have available with us today in order to be able to put that into your production environment. Okay. And that's what we're here to talk about today is how do we shave those minutes off? Because those minutes become the basis for what we call the return on investment for any sort of technology you want to purchase on a go-forward basis.
Well, thank you, Ron. I'm glad you brought up the ROI. So, we here at Linedata launched our analytics business line and a set of offers, AI-enabled business line, going back now almost 7 years. And, we've had some wonderful projects and wonderful offerings developed from our analytics team. But where we know that our financial service customers struggle is with the constantly changing pace of AI-enabled capabilities in the market. How on earth do you pin anything down to get to an ROI, right? What's truly investable? What's experimentation or POC money? What is actually investable? So from that ROI perspective, CVG, you were a customer of nRoad's, and I know you looked after technology budgets for some years. What's your view on the ROI in the context of where we live today? How do firms do this, right? How is it compelling? How does it work?
I mean, for me, well, there's financial ROI, obviously, right? So you process financial statement, you do that manually, you replace it with technology. How much time do you save when you do this? Okay, so that's and obviously, one thing as well is how much time do you save, but is this technology widely usable? I mean, can it deal with foreign languages and things like that? Because you need to have something which can be applied globally across all your teams. Otherwise, it's create pockets where that use the technology and no others. So first, make sure that you have something that can be applied widely across the board. I mean, our experience was, well, when you can compute your ROI, obviously, there's the direct saving that you do when you process the data, but also, I mean, when you process things manually, you have error rates, you have missing data. That data goes into production. You have unhappy customers. These unhappy customers call back your support. The support, has to handle the request. The data has to be corrected, put back in production, blah, blah, blah. So the fact that not in your ROI calculations, there's the direct saving times, but also what do you gain in terms of support? And also when your people having better data quality also has a direct impact on your business. In our case, as we were selling databases, we could sell more and reach more customers. People test you on the data quality. I mean, and I would say for a bank or a financial institutions, having wrong data can lead to wrong credit decision and huge losses. So all that has to be taken into your ROI calculations, not only the direct cost of the time that you save. That's the obvious thing, but it's much more than that. And it goes up to the quality, the satisfaction of your customers.
I love that angle, right? And I think adding those components to a true ROI analysis of a potential technology-enabled solution, again, we as a provider, we don't see that often enough in our client base. We know that firms have really struggled. Now, we were highlighted, and Aashish, and you and CVG kind of mentioned this obliquely, but there is an impact on staff. Mm-hmm. Right. And so Ron gave us a great point of view as an operations executive and a manager of thinking about shaving off 5 minutes here and a minute here and 7 minutes there, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the absolute truisms with financial services, this is on both sides of our Linedata's client base, both on the asset management side and on the lending and leasing credit side of the business. Staffing and maintaining career paths for operational juniors is a real problem. Right?
Absolutely.
And so one of these ROIs that is potential with a technology-enabled AI-infused future, right, is that you could theoretically reduce the tedious parts of some of these operational jobs while maintaining that operational integrity. That's a promise. Now, a potential, right? But CVG, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're absolutely right, Gary. I mean, basically, if you have, I mean, obviously, people managing data are people which are difficult to keep in the organization because that work can be tedious. Now, if you have turnover in your staff, the nice thing with these new technologies is that the machine understands how the data has to be treated. So, you know, people might go, but the knowledge remains, and that's very important. Correct. And I would say even more, you know, when you deal with complex financial statements for, let's say, a bank, you look at the accounts of BNP Paribas, okay, the report is 200 pages, and you suppose you have to standardize this financial data. If you take 2 humans to do it, you will have different results. Yes. Why? Because some of these line items are subject to interpretation, while the machine, once you have understood how you want to spread the data, you're going to have consistent results. So, as you say, you know, it's I mean, in terms of staff, clearly it adds the value to the business in the sense that the knowledge retained within the organization.
Correct. Other thing, Gary, that just to jump in here, that is, I think, a critical point. As I said, I'm an automation first kind of a person, and I think I think automating things, keeping it within the boundaries of the enterprise, it's actually critical versus doing mindless outsourcing and then leaving, you know, that the knowledge lives with the person. We don't want to do. You want to actually encapsulate your knowledge, your processes within the box that it remains with you.
Yeah, and Gary, I'll add to that. What we've been talking about here is, you know, I look at a lot of different financial institutions. I look at their strategies across their organizations, and I do this consistently across all of North America. And one of the biggest things that financial institutions look at today are talent acquisition and talent retention. Okay, now you give somebody a job, and let's, for lack of better words, they process widgets. Okay, it's a task that could be turned into a automated task through AI, right? Well, what do you do with an individual like that to keep them happy in your organization, right? Nobody wants to be complacent in a job position. Nobody wants to stay in the same job and be paid the same amount for the next 5 years, right? So what do you have to do? And you use a piece of technology like the one that we're talking about today. And the value in it is, let me move you out of the mundane, everything that you do every day that we know that we can automate and we can probably increase the operational accuracy on. And let's give you a job that's more meaningful and that's more value added towards the organization so that you are more likely to stay with that organization. Because as we all know today, the organizational cost in a financial institution to rehire and retrain an individual is excessively high, as opposed to giving that person something meaningful and transferring their job into something where it could be entirely automated.
Mm-hmm. This intersection of technology, business process changes, because you're not buying technology to keep doing things the same way, right? And this notion of AI, which is at the same time both exciting and, to be blunt, scary as all heck to a large number of humans in the industry, right? That dynamic is very hard, and in our experience, managing internal Linedata, even as we look to AI enable many of our own internal teams. But we know that it's hard for every company, right? And Ashish, you mentioned something, and Ron, I think you reinforced that point that I want to dive into a little bit in advance of doing a bit of a show and tell and a quick demo, which is boundaries and scope, right? What we are going to be showing today, right, and Ron will take us through that here in just a couple of minutes, right, is a direct application of purpose-built technology applied to a well-defined process that is tedious and annoying for every firm in this planet, right? And so one way to go around this issue of everything's always changing with AI and it's taking all of our jobs and I don't know what's going to happen and oh my gosh, my hair's on fire. One way to get around that problem is to keep things focused, right? And so, Ashish, if you want to just start giving us the intro here, right? We're particularly working together in our lending business with nRoad to enable one particular business process called blank. You're going to tell us what the blank is, and then we're going to have Ron take us through and show this integration, because I'm very interested. Being from Missouri, it's a show me state. I like to see things, and so we're excited. So Ashish, what specifically can you help people with, please?
Perfect. So what you're about to see and what we have been able to successfully do is process financial statements for spreading. It's called auto spreading. Now, our role, or the nRoad technology role here, is actually very targeted. We are taking public, private, financial statements, ITRs, all kinds of actually the income verification, let's call it, for the businesses documents that are come in. We are extracting everything from it, all the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, if it is available. If it is a public company, we're identifying what the right financial statement to be picked up. As you know, in public company reports, the financial statement appears multiple times in the document. We are associating notes to the financial statement. We are doing all that. We are extracting the data from the financial statement, and then we are normalizing that data to a specific client template.
Okay.
Because every customer, every client of ours look at same financial statement differently. That's how they differ in their analysis. And so what we've been able to do is not only extraction process, automate the extraction process, but also a normalization process, which is basically standardizing to a chart of account or chart of accounts. Now, while doing all that, we have maintained the complete trackability and traceability. Every element that we've been able to extract and normalize, user can actually go back to the source document with the click of a button, so that it gives the user a complete auditability and the confidence in those numbers. Number one. Number two, human analysts have complete control over that output. He or she choose to change certain things, absolutely can. This is not and then we will pinpoint wherever, as CVG said, we'll give the confidence, we'll tell them where machine is actually struggling. If it is, our machine is basically right. Whatever changes you will make, it goes back into the feedback loop. Next time the similar or the same document comes in, it will apply that particular learning. So it's a completely reinforced learning platform, does all this stuff. So you're about to see that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. So for those who caught everything that Ashish just said, just at one point, we're going to demonstrate an automatic spreading, otherwise known as auto spreading process here, with an integration into Capitalstream. So Ron, we're going to turn it over to you, who's going to be our driver and host for this portion. Thank you, sir.
I will do my best, Gary. I will do my best. So I'm going to share my screen here for just 1 second. I just need you guys to let me know whether you can see my screen or not.
It is up and ready.
All right. So I'm going to sign in to what would be the Linedata Capitalstream solution. Okay. Now, this is a solution that is proven. It's market tested. It's been around for a while. We continually make improvements to it. We're going to start here at what we call the customer record. Okay. And realistically, the customer record is just going to contain all the data regarding a customer. It could be a related party as well. that we want to kind of retain, and we want to use, and we want to repurpose in some senses as we process what would be, a lending or even a leasing transaction. Okay. So when I go in to the customer record, I see this tab that's off to the left-hand side, this pane. And realistically, we've kind of grouped these things in the platform such that there are certain, views that we want to take a look at from a certain perspective for any given borrower. And in our case, if I go into this credit and risk view, this is where we see the financial statements that are actually being stored for a borrower in Capitalstream Solutions. So I'll widen this out here and take a look at this. Okay. Now, the idea behind this and to create a financial statement in Capitalstream is not very sophisticated whatsoever. This is a module. It comes with the overall Capitalstream solution. And realistically, there's just a couple fields that I need to fill in here. And these fields are actually defined by what you would see these little asterisks here. Those are things that are absolutely necessary for us to recognize how to move forward. If I don't have those, I don't have everything that I need in order to move forward in a process. And the system will actually tell me that in this case. So what I've done is I've selected a financial statement. Now, the nRoad solution that we have connected to Capitalstream is smart enough to know that within the repository, I'm looking at a financial statement. It says this is the financial statement that we have on record. Okay, so it is for this particular company, and it is for the end of year 21 in 2022. There's a couple little pieces of data that I need to enter in here so that all the validations are done. What you'll see here is we have the ability to put templates in Capitalstream. We give you 5 out of the box. You can create as many templates as you want, which are very helpful for a business that does niche, where you might have a certain template for each type of a niche type of business that you're working with. I'm going to give it a name. We're going to use actual dollars. Since the document that was recognized had a start date of 2021, we're putting that in there. There's 2 periods in the document recognized. We're going to go and we're going to do 2 periods here. Now, why did I pick a financial statement over a tax return? Why did I pick that over an SEC filing, right? Well, those are standardized documents, and those are very easy documents for anybody to try to map with a solution that doesn't have intelligent technology that's built behind it. In a financial statement, as anybody knows who's probably listening to this webinar, you can get financial statements based on the company. And if your accountant prepares them, or if your auditor prepares them, or even if your company prepares them, they can look substantially different. And most financial institutions don't have a uniform format for this. So I think this is the best way to show the value of the integration that we have between the nRoad and Capitalstream's solutions. But first, I'm going to start here by processing this document. And what we're referring to is this document right here. Okay. So when I press process that document, in the back, what's actually happening is nRoad is actually processing that document. It's reading that document. It's reading everything that's in the document, and it's looking at, in the Capitalstream solution, in the financial spreading and analysis module, what are the chart of accounts that actually match what those names are, so that we can, essentially come up with what would be a auto spread. Now, when I hit the auto spread button here, what I do see is I see the financial statement that was actually, this is the document on this side that was ingested. Okay. And for auditability purposes, if I wanted to go and I wanted to say, hey, where did that cash come from? And I clicked on cash, it would highlight that here, and vice versa. And it would tell me where these things are in the financial statement. But in the integration that we have, this is actually smart enough, okay, to know that there are some things, and this is a great example down here, that did not map over because there is no goodwill that is in the chart of accounts on the Capitalstream side, but there is a title called goodwill in BB Enterprises financial statement. But very easily enough, I can map these 2 items over by simply clicking in the cell here and clicking in the cell there, and it'll actually load that figure, okay? You'll see the figure load. And similarly, I'll do this for the next fiscal year end as well. I'll do the exact same thing as well. And I'll load that into that statement as well by clicking on that. So what we've basically got is a point and click type system. I'm not done here because if I look down at the model and I go down maybe a couple steps further, okay, what I'm also going to see right here is there was an income statement that was there. And again, I've got two items that were missing. And in a very, very similar manner, I'm just going to click here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here. As a responsible financial analyst, I think I've got everything that matches. I run up and down. I make sure that my financial totals match. And if I'm very happy with that, I place the accept button and I'm going to save off this particular financial statement. Now, in saving this financial statement, what I have actually done is trained the nRoad model that when you see this particular customer's next financial statement presented to us, and they use the words goodwill, or they use the words general and administrative expenses, I know that it's going to be put exactly where it needs to be. So here's the test right here. I've got 1 year down the line, I get an additional financial statement that's sent to me, okay? In a very similar manner to what we saw at the start of the demonstration, okay? I've got to enter in some of this information, which was actually required. And in my case, I entered in the financial statement. I know that I'm looking for the next period, which was 23. nRoad's solution was smart enough to pick the next document that was there. So we know that we've got the right document. There's a little overlap between 22 and 23, but we'll explain how that works in a second. And then I'm just going to fill out the rest of that information here, right? I'm going to put in the statement date, 12 months. I only want to do 2023, and I'm going to press OK here, okay? Now, that's set. I'm going to go against the document that has been in the nRoad that it actually picked out for me. And I'm going to say that, I accept these documents as they are. I don't want to override them. The nice part about it is if somebody made a change in 2022, I'm going to pick up that change as well. But I'm really looking for the numbers to pre-populate in 2023. So when I press this, and I'm done right here, okay, this, at the end of this, is automatically done for me. Now, you'll notice there's two things that happened here. One is I was never asked, hey, we've got a misalignment. We've got some things that didn't map over. So the first changes that I made to the model for the 2022 and 2021 statements actually are reflected for 2023. And the reality of it is that you can see that even if we zero in, and I probably need glasses to do this, what you'd see in intangible assets here, we've got what I did load manually, but with the third financial statement, it automatically read that because I trained the model the first time. And that means that anytime going forward, no matter if I have 99 statement periods, I will never have to change this model unless something changes with my borrower and he changes the format that he's going to send these things to me in. And that's quite possible that if he goes to a different account, he can do that. But then I have the ability where it would show up again and I would kind of remap it and we would use that, all over again. So the reality of it is I've spread 3 financial statements, 3 annual statements, and it probably took me maybe no more than 9 minutes to do this, okay? And that's the magic about getting the ROI behind a transaction like this and showing you realistically the partnership between how it is that a product like Capitalstream can be integrated with a product like nRoad to kind of increase the operational efficiency in one particular function, but there's many more that this can be done for. So Gary, I'm going to turn this back to you at this particular point,
Great.
And I'm going to stop sharing.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ron. So what we all just saw, something real, right? So that's actually real. This is a proper integration on a well-defined business process. Ron, you hinted at like, well, we don't want to stop just here in the auto spreading within Capitalstream. So there are many, many, many places to go. And as Aashish mentioned earlier, staying focused really matters. So as we think about looking over the hedge, we actually have a question that came in from our attendees today, which is, well, how could we use AI in the actual production of documents? And in this case, they mentioned both prospectus or investor communication documents, shareholder reports. So Aashish, I'd like to get your perspective, and I would remind you to come off mute before you start talking, and yeah, get a perspective on that.
Clearly, that's another use case that we have actually experimented. As you are actually drafting some of these prospectuses or putting together a piece of collateral, assuming all that information is available in disparate either systems or in documents that can be collated, and then and it can be actually put together for a human to actually review, intervene, and edit. That technology exists today. Happy to actually take a look at it to maybe understand the specific problem that you may be having, and we'll actually give you at least our point of view and show you what we have done in the past.
Great. Well, thank you, Aashish. And we have been looking even within just Capitalstream, but we're looking in similar across the lending software, and I know on the asset management software products. The ability to do things, let's pick on lending for a bit further. For those who may remember, we had our Linedata exchange in New York just about a month ago. And one of the capabilities that we demonstrated as an early stage capability is to be able to help create the text around internal credit memos or annual review processes, where you're going to be looking at the relationship and you have a subjective set of text that needs to be created and presented, further edited, but it really is a jump start. So I love this area of production, that is generation of documentation. Many financial processes, and in the ones mentioned here in the question, are absolutely those kind of processes. Tailored shareholder reports, that's a lot of source data in a certain style, written in a particular format. So again, another great kind of AI use case. But as we get to the end of our session here today, one, I want to thank everybody for joining, who was able to join us in real time. Two, thank our panelists. But three, let's just do a quick reminder of what we heard, right? So what's the punchline if somebody says, oh, why did you go listen on a webinar instead of doing your tedious manual spreading job today, dear staff member? You can tell them, well, I found out who nRoad was. We found out why they joined up Linedata. We found out how we got to where we're at and why it's not hype and BS in the usage of AI in financial workflows. And we actually got to see a live demonstration of documents being auto-magically ingested, extracted, mapped, and feedback loop and reinforcement learning. So you got to see all of those incredible things today. So you could proudly tell your operational manager, in a prior life that would have been Ron, demanding justification for your time spent. You guys did it well today. So we want to thank everybody for joining. Again, if you want to learn more about these specific offers, if you want to have an angle on expansion of use cases, much work is already underway to continue to expand both the scope and remit of Aashish's team here at Linedata now. Please reach out to your account manager, to your salesperson, to the marketing department. You can come in through the website. We have every channel available for inbound questions. We'd love to chat with you further. Super exciting stuff. Making AI real is my sum of the session today, gentlemen. So thank you for bringing some realness to this overhyped industry. Guys, have a great day and a great week.